Hello, so this will be part 23 in the series, An Ancient Legacy, and this will be a direct follow-on from episode 22, Beauvais Cathedral, and this ancient legacy which is being passed down through architects, stonemasons, alchemists, hermeticists, these types of organisations who, for many different reasons, were required to operate in secrecy because of the various rise and fall of dogma and the mob, amongst other reasons. Of course, it's never ever quite so simple. But so Beauvais already previous episode talked about 144 symbolism, which is just repeated in every cathedral, major church you can think of. The medieval royal foot, I call that now Stefan van Leffringe called it the royal foot, not to, but I'm just highlighting it as a medieval royal foot, not to confuse it with the Babylonian royal foot and some other ancient systems of measure which have been passed down. They contain vital astronomical information, but also timekeeping and also the literal temple proportion. So time and measurement of length, and measurement of time are connected together. Now, at 144 medieval royal feet high, the vault, the whole cathedral itself is defined by the medieval royal foot, and we'll look at that in the future, but for the moment, this just happens to convert to 27.3 ionic or fathom or 109.333 ionic cubits. Both of these very important, but of course, one medieval royal foot is 109.33 modern English foot, which of course is anything but modern, as we can see in the Salamis stone, at least 2,500 years old, more likely 5,000 years old at the very least. But also the ionic foot will be a feature, and so now take up a new episode. So we also have the Ionian music mode. So Ionic is a school of architecture passed down from Greek times through the Romans, rebirthed around the 1500s. So you'll see buildings. Other videos I've gone about Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns in design. So it's not just an aesthetic in temple design. There's also music, measurement. The quadrivium is connected to it. Also metrology, like a literal measurement as well. But also symbolically, it's also called the column of wisdom, and it's connected to the woman. Now, those curls are meant to be suggestive of the curls. Almost imagine Princess Leia from Star Wars with those curls. So the concept is that these very simple curls describe the very simple hairstyle of a beautiful woman, as where the Corinthian column is very elaborate to describe the makeup and hair used by the Virgin, as where a Doric column is male. But so wisdom, it also connected to the sense of feeling. So of the five, so we have the three Greek columns, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, standard feature on tracing boards, but you also see the five columns, which include the Tuscan and the composite. So that's the five columns overall to represent the five senses as well. But just to focus on the Ionic for the moment, which is that's like an Ionic column, and it's a system of music. It's also a system of length and measurement. So we're getting at the nitty gritty of the quadrivium. However, the medieval royal foot, which is attributed to this time of the Great Cathedrals, basically 11 to 1300, actually has very old roots in the Aegina foot from ancient Greece, which was 333 millimeters, and by that, so 1.0933 feet equals one medieval royal foot, or 333.248 millimeters, like literally splitting hairs with that 0.2. So the differences between them is so minute that even again within the margins of error of measuring the older Aegina foot as compared to the medieval royal foot, it's pretty much spot on. Why is that important? Because 3 medieval royal feet or 1 medieval royal yard is 0.99974 meters, and an Aegina foot would be 0.999 meters. Now that would be, again, this ancient Greek foot has this correspondence in itself is pretty amazing. But so it also connects to especially episodes 1, 2, and 3 in this series, and earlier videos I did on the Great Pyramid and the importance of the Egyptian royal cubit and the connection to the second. 1 meter long pendulum creates a second. That's literally the pendulum that's built into the physics of our world. But as you move north or south of the equator, it changes ever so slightly. Again, I covered that in some earlier videos, so I won't go into the more technical aspects of that for now. But 1 meter is a unit of measuring time as much as it is a unit of measuring length. This has been lost amongst modern history, but there's lots of evidence. Well, it's not even evidence. It's literally written down through history, going back quite some time. The ancient Romans and Greeks, and by definition probably the older civilizations, were quite accurate in timekeeping. That was how they were able to achieve such for instance, their skill in astronomy, as observed in the Antikythera mechanism, is evidence of their skill in observation, which was based on measuring tools and especially on timing, which cannot be done without a pendulum as a calibration tool. So to build an hourglass or a water clock, you need some calibration, some standard from which to build, and the pendulum is the only object that fits that system. And of course, they were well known going back to very ancient times. So we have the ionic, and that it happens to convert at 27.333, very, very important number. Also 109.33, I'll get into the details of that eventually, but the connection between the woman and the ionic column goes back to what's called the Naxian Sphinx. So we see the female Sphinx, again, like on the ionic column. This is the oldest known example of an ionic column. At this point, it's worth bringing up the work of Frank Albo, architectural historian, very much into the Masonic connections between cities such as Astana, but also Winnipeg and the Manitoba Legislative Building, and how Astana, this could also be applied to Canberra, Brasilia, Washington, London and Paris as well, are built around these themes, which are connected not only to New Jerusalem, but with his focus on Solomon's Temple. And again, these Masonic traditions are actually very, very ancient, not to the in the last few centuries where we see Freemasonry as it's most commonly known, but going back to the ancient craft guilds, Hermeticists, alchemists, the Pythagorean schools. It's all built into their, like literally it's in their symbolism, all the tools of construction and stonework and of measurement, music, alchemy. It's all there, and it's part of his ancient legacy. Here's like, for instance, a Mason tracing board. Sometimes I have the Lighthouse of Pharos, but this particular version has the Solomon's Temple in there. This is a crucial theme in the Masonic legend, Hiram Abiff and King Solomon's Temple. Again, stonework. These were the masters of moving stone, going back, again, ancient origins, back but well before the Greeks and the Romans. These guys knew a lot about cutting stone, moving stone, shaping stone. This was their business. This is what they did. So Frank Albo, so this is a reconstruction based on the definitions of Solomon's Temple, and you had the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. It suddenly just disappeared from the record just after Queen Sheba left, but the Holy of Holies are cubed, 20 by 20 by 20 cubits. For instance, in Manitoba, one of these very, very hermetic cities with this architecture built into there, an ancient legacy that's been passed on still to this day, and so much of the symbolism is written in numbers and measurements, not just the visual symbols as well. And at 24 by 24 feet, now this is Frank Albo on the roof of the Manitoba Legislative Building. This is a Sphinx consecrated to Ra. And again, so this can be translated just like this is by no means an ancient Sphinx, and just like Gothic glyphs, let's not go there. He proposes that this the Masonic cubit, as he calls it, is 14.4 inches, so that's a little reference to 144, or that's 1.2 feet, which sort of brings us to this very important, the 6/5 connection. So for instance, 6 sacred Jewish cubits, as it's called, is equal to 5 Egyptian royal cubits, as where 6 feet is equal to 5 of these Masonic cubits, as proposed by Dr. Frank Albo. However, he's very much into Astana, and the reason why I'm bringing that up, because Astana, Washington, Brasilia, and Canberra are everyone knows about Washington, but Astana, Brasilia, and Canberra are these other 4 cities which are built on this sacred geometry with the sacred architecture, like some very obvious symbolism, but also each of these monumental structures on this monumental axis, which these cities are all built, are also all embedded with very important number symbolism, which connects to the quadrivium of music, geometry, arithmetic, and astronomy, the ancient sciences, the ancient Hermetic code, Hermes, god of weights and measures and trade and knowledge, Thoth, god of weights and measures and language and knowledge, gods of science. So 27.333, now keep that in mind, because we have the Kazakh Eli monument. Now that's 273 medieval royal cubits. I would say it's 273.33, but it's just described as being 91 meters, so it could be a little bit either way, but I would say it's 27.3. This is an older card. I would update that. Now the Beta Tower is very important, which has a sun. It's literally called the Sun Sphere. It's 72 feet wide, which again embodies all these important measurements. The Presidential Palace, I've done a few videos on: Canberra, Brasilia, Washington, Astana, Paris, London. They're all got it in there. Not just some random building. I mean the major monumental buildings and structures, memorials, every single one of them is built on these same numbers and proportions. And so, for instance, the top floor, again described as being 97 meters. Well, that would be on the Cremona scale, which I've gone detailed in some many hours talking about that and how important it is to ancient. Anyway, 273 again, or 100, and again within this flexibility, because I'm working on best available measures, I can't get the accuracy, but because it's by Norman Foster. He's a hermeticist, and every building he does is embodied with these systems, whether it's in London, America, even buildings not yet built in Russia, I forget the name of the tower. It's all in, again, he's a hermeticist. He's working on these ancient principles, and that's one of the reasons why Norman Foster, IMP, and this small Daniel Libeskind, these sort of rock star architects who get the big jobs, the big memorials, the big city plan designs, all working on this consistently every single time, without doubt. They are antiquarians, and work, part of this ancient legacy which goes on. So even the entertainment centre like this, well, again, on the medieval royal scale on rods, again, 150 metres is a description. Again, there's a little bit of leeway in there. I'd like to be, but again, Norman Foster, you could even 27.333. This would also correspond to the Great Pyramid proportions as well. But again, just another example, just within Astana of this. But why is that so important? So, okay, we'll go into that in the next episode, and hope you enjoyed. Again, the next section will be coming up, will be an extension of this and going into the meaning of 273, and again, how it's part of this ancient legacy, not just measurement, but also in weights, going back to Old Kingdom Egypt, the Indus, and just repeated through time, through each of the great empires and their architecture as well. So, more to come.